everyone. I am Annalisa Bruno and now let us talk about the critical discourse analysis. So, what is critical discourse analysis? Critical discourse analysis, or CDA, is a transdisciplinary approach to discourse, drawing on social as well as linguistic theory. It has been influential not only in language studies but also in other fields such as business, public health, organizational studies, media studies, accounting, and even tourism. It focuses on the way social power is enacted through spoken and written text, and more recently through visual images, sound, and other forms of semiosis, with a special emphasis on dominance, exploitation, and resistance in various social contexts. So, critical linguistics or CL and critical discourse analysis or CDA have been frequently used interchangeably recently. However, the term CDA seems to have been preferred and is being used to denote the theory. The term CDA seems to have been preferred and is being used to denote the theory formerly identified as CL. Will continue to use CDA exclusively in this paper and for extensive discussion of the terms text linguistics and social linguistics, as well as in applied linguistics and pragmatics. So, Discourse and Society is a leading international peer-reviewed journal whose major aim to publish outstanding research at the boundaries of discourse analysis and the social sciences. It focuses on explicit theory formation and analysis of the relationship between the structures of text and to use verbal interaction or communication. So Fairclough sees every instance of discourse as having three interrelated dimensions: as a text, spoken or written, as an interaction between people involving processes of producing and interpreting the text, and as part of piece of social action. These three dimensions are seen as interaction and interacting. Fairclough writes with regard to a later version of this diagram. So this is the diagram, which include text, discursive practice, and social practice. In addition, CDA has a number of other commonly shared concepts. First, as already suggested, CDA views discourse and society as mutually constitutive, that is to say, a society is not possible without discourse, and discourse cannot exist without social interaction. That is not to say, however, that all action is discursive. On the contrary, CDA allows for the interplay of discursive and material action. So contextual analysis may not include ethnographic analysis, although Fairclough 2003 allows for an ethnographic dimension. This is not part of his personal practice. And for Wodak, on the other hand, ethnography is essential to her method. For both Fairclough and Wodak, important dimension of context is intertextually how one text interrelates with other. And now let us move forward to the major proponents of critical discourse analysis. So first is Fairclough, has focused on discourse and power, on discourse and social change, globalization, neoliberalism, knowledge economy, and on media discourse. Woodcock, in common with Fairclough, Woodcock's research agenda focuses on the development of theoretical approaches to CDA. She combines elements of ethnography, argumentation, theory, rhetoric, and functional system linguistics, focusing on gender, language and politics, prejudice, and discrimination. While Van de Dijk, developing earlier in the 1970s in the psychology of text processing with Walter Knich. Van de Dijk's contribution to CDA has been in developing a socio-cognitive model with a focus on the discursive reproduction of racism, in particular by politicians, Jumali writers, which refers to the symbolic elites and its printed news on media. While Kress, although as already mentioned in his later work, Kress has moved away from CDA. As one of the founding members of the group, his is an important contribution. Already in earlier work with Fowler and Hodge, he was a leading theoretician for critical linguistics, focusing on ideology in news discourse. His later book, Linguistic Processes in Sociocultural Practice, is significant in setting out some important principles for CDA, as his contribution to the special edition of Discourse and Society, referred to above, against arbitrariness. And the last one is Van Leeuwen. Van Leeuwen is influenced by his background in film and television, emphasizes the overall semiotic nature of discourse. So considering not just text, but acoustic and visual elements of discourse as well as material action. With regard to CDA and in accordance with his overall semiotic approach, Van Leeuwen has stated that there is neat fit between sociological and linguistic and critical discourse analysis in investigating to specific linguistic operation or categories many relevant instances of agency might be overlooked. That's all of my part. Once again, I'm Anariza Guno, and once again,